Ticket sales for WrestleMania 42 are reportedly down. Oh my god, they're in free fall. It's the end of the freaking world, dude. Not really, but reports have recently come out that WWE held an all-hands meeting to discuss the apparently disappointing advance sales for WrestleMania 42, the two-night extravaganza set to take place April 18th and April 19th. The annual Supercard, which is run for, you guessed it, 42 years, is currently set to emanate from Las Vegas, Nevada, and 2 months out, ticket sales at time of recording sit around 37,000 per night. You may be thinking to yourself, those sound like good numbers, big, strong number. And like, yeah, in the grand scheme, kind of, but in the historical precedent of WrestleMania, it's kind of really bad. So here's the deal with WrestleMania. If you don't know, it's WWE's big Super Bowl-like event every year. It's their biggest of the season, and for that, they want to draw really big numbers. Last year's attendance was around 60K and 59K per night last year, and according to an article I found on Yahoo Sports, ticket sales at this time this year compared to this time last year are down about 10K. They didn't specify if that was total or per night, but I kind of assume it's per night. And for WrestleMania, this isn't good. The last time a WrestleMania drew less than 60K-ish fans was, technically it was WrestleMania 37 in 2021, but that was for post-COVID reasons. And obviously the year before that drew even less for COVID reasons. But the last time before that, for the world is ending reasons, was all the way back at WrestleMania 22. And that was in 2006, literally fully 2 decades ago. That was the last time that WrestleMania had run from an arena, the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, if you're curious. And from WrestleMania 23 onward, WrestleMania has exclusively run from football stadiums, big buildings. Like Mania 22 drew about 17K, and 23 drew about 74K, and WrestleMania has remained in that attendance ballpark ever since, even in recent years where the event has expanded to 2 nights rather than 1. The lowest a single night of WrestleMania has drawn since was, again, last year. Which one was it? When night 1 drew around 58K. So with all that context, the current figures. At time of recording, sales sit at around 37K per night, the total amount of seats currently available being 45,000. More seating generally only becomes available once more tickets get sold, because you don't want the arena or the stadium in this case, to look empty. And obviously there's still a lot of time for more sales and for the tickets to be discounted and drive up attendance. But yeah, it's not good. It's so not good that WWE is holding internal meetings about how not good it is, so it's not good. Which begs the question, for why? How did we get here? And I used to know you so well. Well, it's actually kind of interesting because the story behind it is actually very messy. So WrestleMania 42 originally was not supposed to emanate from Las Vegas, Nevada. This was public knowledge. How public? On February 21st, 2025, Dwayne T. Rock Johnson appeared on SmackDown in Louisiana to announce that WrestleMania 42 would emanate from New Orleans, Louisiana, not the other one. And then it was walked back about 4 months later. On June 7th, at their Money in the Bank pay-per-view, WWE announced that, actually no, forget the New Orleans thing, we're going back to Vegas. As compensation, they announced that New Orleans would pity host Money in the Bank 2026, which isn't an equivalent trade, but I guess not a bad one. And they gave a very non-committal, yeah, and they'll host a future WrestleMania, for sure. To circle back to the Dwayne promo, this was the same SmackDown promo where he said that he wanted to consume Cody Rhodes' soul. So it was a really productive 30 minutes of television. So how was this allowed to happen? I don't really know. I can tell you the reasoning for the move, and it all comes down to revenue, and it all comes down to WWE's parent company, TKO, which also owns the UFC. So first of all, a lot of TKO executives favor and live in Las Vegas. You know, it's a big tourist destination, UFC already does a lot of stuff there. Current WWE president, Nick Khan, grew up there, so favoritism. My least favorite of the tisms. And also money. WWE made a fuck ton of money in Las Vegas for WrestleMania last year. In fact, the company put out a whole press release talking about how that event was the most successful in company history, including the largest gate in company history. What's really notable here is that gate doesn't refer to attendance, it refers to revenue driven by ticket sales. This is notable because WrestleMania 41 was not the most attended event in in company history. They do what I think is a kind of stupid thing where they combine the attendance for both days. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that WrestleMania 41 drew their claimed 124,693 fans. This is not their most attended WrestleMania. That distinction goes to WrestleMania 39 with 134,856 attendees. And yet WrestleMania 41 drew the most money. Now, if you take your 2 brain cells, you take 1 and add 1, slowly but surely you will get 2. 2 meaning that tickets for WrestleMania 41 were ludicrously expensive. This has become a staple of the TKO era, and we'll talk more about it later, but these tickets were at least expensive enough to surpass a difference in 10,000 fans over 2 nights. And WrestleMania is already a very expensive ticket, so that tells a story. And yeah, it was pretty much confirmed that TKO moved WrestleMania from New Orleans to Las Vegas because they didn't think they would be able to make the same amount of revenue in New Orleans as they did in Las Vegas. Probably because Las Vegas is already very expensive, it's already a tourist destination, a lot of people are already going there, and because they fucking got away with it before, so why not try it again? But enough of the prelude, let's live in the present. Why do we think ticket sales are down right now? It really comes down, in my opinion, to 3 main reasons. Number 1, creative reasons. I spoke in my Royal Rumble review about how it was kind of obvious that plans for this year's WrestleMania had not been crystallized at the time of that event, and that has held true. At time of recording, there are 2, count 'em, 2 matches formally announced for this year's WrestleMania. That's really low, especially for this time in the year. For reference, each night of WrestleMania tends to have between more than 5, but fewer than 8 matches per night. Shut up, shut the fuck up, lock in. And considering that 2 more world title matches will be determined at Elimination Chamber, that means WWE have about 8 to 10 matches yet to be announced. Now, I don't know if you know this, but for live events that you are buying a ticket for, it generally behooves ticket sales when the prospective purchaser knows what the fuck is going to happen at the event. And hey, technically that's kind of good news because you probably have a decent amount of people who are holding out on their ticket purchase until they know what the rest of the card is. But honestly, I don't think that's a very large amount of people. I feel that way because of economic reasons that we will get into, but also WrestleMania is a name brand experience. It is a tourist destination unto itself. If you are a wrestling fan, not just a WWE fan, but a wrestling fan, going to WrestleMania may very well be on your bucket list, not just because of WrestleMania itself, but because whatever city WrestleMania is in the periphery of that, a ton, and I mean a ton of big name independent promotions all run shows over that weekend, and it becomes a big wrestling extravaganza. And so fans may buy tickets that may not be the best viewing seats for WrestleMania, but they're going to take the trip anyway because they want to see really exciting indie matches and affronts to God all in the same weekend. Yeah, it's like Disneyland. Yes, maybe the park won't be as creatively satisfying as it was in past years to the diehard critical onlooker, but it's still a major tourist event. It's still something you want to do in your life for the reputation and name value alone. That is to say, there's a certain amount of inertia that WrestleMania does and will continue to have regardless of the creative quality of the product. This can be seen in literally the past 2 decades of WrestleMania. This company has seen some really fucking bad creative times and some really fucking bad WrestleMania cards, but they still haven't drawn less than 60K, and I believe that's because of this name brand experience, because of all the wrestling themed ballyhoo that comes to whatever area WrestleMania is hosting that year. So yeah, I personally put the least stock into creative concerns as a reason for low ticket sales, but again, it really would fucking help if you announced what is going to be on the show, and it would really help both your TV and your pay-per-view if you knew what those matches were going to be, and they just clearly don't. So it is what it is for now. Point number 2, eye gouging prices. If you have been following WWE at all, it is no secret that since their acquisition by TKO, ticket prices have been going pretty crazy. Not just ticket prices, this corporate acquisition has caused a higher amount of advertising, both in video form and in the form of fathead style Slim Jim stickers being put on literally every table they use. And I mean, look at the ring mat, man. Look at his shit. That's TKO, baby. And the ticket prices, ooh, the ticket prices. So according to data analyzed by WrestleTix, since 2023, WWE's average ticket price has nearly doubled in cost, from a $60 average in 2023 to a $118 average in 2025. And as far as I'm aware, these tickets are adjusted for 2025 inflation, so they've gotten really out of hand. And WrestleMania is already a pricey ticket. You know, it's their biggest event of the year, their big extravaganza. Of course, it's going to be their most expensive ticket of the year, but it's gotten pretty ridiculous. Anecdotally, I checked some ticket prices on Ticketmaster, and literally the nosebleeds, the farthest you can get in the ring in, again, a 60,000 seat stadium, goes for $300 at time of recording. Needless to say, that is, apparently like TKO's executives, exorbitantly high. And you know, it's not like the American economy is doing especially well in current times. As such, I think a lot of fans are being priced out. Again, consider the average pro wrestling fan who wants to go to a WrestleMania town to see all of the independent promotions. Maybe they'd be willing to take a, say, $150 ticket for a nosebleed so that they can do WrestleMania and also all the stuff surrounding. Now that ticket price has doubled from their hypothetical doable range. Again, if your least expensive ticket is $300 per ticket, and that's not even including travel and hotel accommodations, yeah, that's a price point that a lot of people just cannot pay. That's before you even get further down in the bowls. By the time you reach floor seats, tickets are upward of $2,000. The people who are willing to pay that much have probably already paid, and the people who are not, I don't know, maybe you can put these tickets on sale for like 50% off, and even then, it's still a pretty penny. So yeah, ticket prices are really high. Not much to say about it beyond that. If anything, it exacerbates other problems with running Las Vegas. Speaking of, reason number 3, double dipping. So here's a fun fact. The last time that 2 WrestleManias took place in the same city back to back was WrestleMania's 4 and 5. They both emanated from Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey, over 3 decades ago. Now, I want to really establish that a lot of this section is speculative, but I believe that there were some very good reasons that WrestleMania doesn't tend to be run from the same city twice in a row. And the reason for that is that year on year, you want to draw from fresh markets. You want to draw from fresh pools of fans. So WrestleMania 41 ran from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. This year's WrestleMania is running from Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. And so the pool of possible attendees you're drawing from are people for whom traveling to Las Vegas is a doable prospect. Needless to say, travel is very expensive, especially nowadays. You're drawing from people who largely live or can travel to the West Coast. If this year's WrestleMania had emanated from New Orleans, then you'd be drawing more from people who can travel to the East Coast, and that is a very different group of people because those are 2 very different places. Now, to be fair, Las Vegas is famously a tourist destination, so maybe there are people who are traveling to Las Vegas at this specific time of year who maybe will pick up a WrestleMania ticket. I don't know how likely that is, but it's possible. You know, you could have a hypothetical bunch of people who are traveling to Las Vegas in April and see, oh, WrestleMania is going to be there, I'll pick up a ticket. You know, that is if their itinerary doesn't already have a bunch of other Las Vegas activities planned that are probably also quite expensive. And also that group of prospective travelers may be smaller in this year because, you know, the economy. So with all that said, let's say, for the sake of argument, that a lot of the pool of prospective attendees that you're drawing from are probably people who considered or did go to WrestleMania last year. I believe that there are 3 primary reasons that those folks may not feel inclined to go this year. Number 1, money. That's what it's all about, baby. So let's say there's a group of attendees last year for whom WrestleMania isn't normally within their price range, but they saved for a year or so, and so they were able to go last year. Or there were people who happened to take Vegas trips that they planned for last year. They're probably not going again this year because that kind of saving for a vacation type of deal isn't something you're probably doing year on year on year. You know, either you don't have the money to save anymore, or if you are saving that money, you're probably looking for a more novel experience, a different destination. And again, with WrestleMania tickets being the most expensive that they have ever been, the savings crowd who were able to go last year probably aren't in a position where they are willing or able to go this year. Reason number 2, creative disappointment. And I'm not just talking about the current product and its lack of direction and vision. Again, let's say we're drawing on people who attended WrestleMania 41. WrestleMania 41, while not necessarily a bad show or series of shows overall, it was still easily the most critically panned WrestleMania of Triple H's tenure as head of creative. Granted, that only encapsulates WrestleMania 40 and kind of WrestleMania 39, but still, despite 2 standout matches, the event largely left a bad taste in people's mouths because it's all about how you leave them. And last year's weekend main event of John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, featuring, for some godforsaken reason, Travis Scott, wasn't well received. And so maybe you have some people of means who were able to go last year and are able to go this year, but are thinking, it was fun, but it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and if I'm gonna go to Vegas anyway, I mean, there's a lot of other things to do in Las Vegas. I could go to the Orb, the massive movie Orb. All that is to say, I think WrestleMania really benefited by moving year on year, because it didn't really matter how poorly received last year's event was, and a lot of these events were really fucking poorly received. You're still drawing on a new pool of people who haven't been to WrestleMania before, or haven't been in a long time. So hey, maybe I'm not caught up with the current product, maybe I don't know where we're at creatively, but I want to go for the experience because I didn't do it literally 365 days ago. Take, for example, WrestleMania's 28 and 29. 28 took place in Florida, 29 took place in New Jersey, but they also put New York on the branding because of course they did. Both of these shows were main evented by The Rock versus John Cena. They drew 78K and 74K fans respectively, and I don't think that would have happened if they had both emanated from Florida, or if they both emanated from New Jersey, New York, tri-state area, because I don't know how many people were going to pay for that specific run-back main event. By drawing from fresh markets, you could literally do the same exact thing you did last year, but you're going to draw new people who didn't get to go the last year. So if you felt burned by the creative last year and you're not inspired by the creative this year, why would you go again? Reason number 3, international travel. A lot of WrestleMania's attendees tend to be international travelers. WWE is a worldwide brand, and people come from all over the world to witness their biggest event of the year. And again, you're probably getting travelers from one side of the world versus the other side of the world because for some people, it's less expensive to fly across this ocean than that ocean. I definitely know which is which off the top of my head, don't ask me again. So again, we have the same case of repeat travelers that we talked about with points 1 and 2, but we also have the added wrinkle that traveling to America in 2026 is not a very attractive prospect because of the horrors. All in all, I think TKO deciding to double dip on this location and therefore double dip on this particular group of fans is their most damaging and short-sighted decision in regards to this entire ordeal. Again, this company has gone through some dog shit creative, but their attendance for WrestleMania has never suffered, and I think a big part of that is their rotation of location. And I think that breaking that formula is going to expose why it worked so well to begin with. But we can't exactly change the location now, and WWE are going to try to do something to boost these ticket sales, so the question is, what now? Well, first, let's establish a goalpost going forward, lest they be moved in the future. So first of all, in terms of money made on the event, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna make a shit zillion dollars one way or another because this is a massive corporate machine that knows how to make money. And again, they're charging a lot of money for tickets anyway, so whoever they get in the door is paying a lot of money to be here. Financially, they're gonna be fine. And as a fan, I don't care. You know, as a fan who's going to be watching from home, my main concern and interest is the sheer attendance, the number of people they can actually get into the building. And in my view, the bare minimum to be considered not a total failure would be for both nights to draw at least 50,000 people in attendance. Because again, WrestleMania hasn't drawn less than 60K, or significantly less than 60K, for one night in over 20 years. not over 20 years, exactly 20 years. But if they draw 50k fans, they can at least say, hey, ever since WrestleMania moved to 2 nights, we have not drawn less than 100,000 people to the stadiums over the course of 2 nights. So, you know, that'll look good in terms of figure, it'll look good on screen. I think 50k attendees is roughly our target number. And I think that's doable. It's not doable right now. Right now, again, the stadium is set up for 45,000 seats per night, but, you know, 2 months is still a lot of time, so what are they gonna do until then? Well, number one, tickets are probably gonna go on sale. I don't know how enticing that's going to be. Like, I feel like this kind of trip is something you plan at least 6 months in advance, so suddenly seeing, oh, WrestleMania tickets are 50% off, I might as well go. Because if you have to fly, if you have to travel, if you have to book accommodations, those aren't going to be on sale. Those are still going to be pretty expensive. So I don't know how much lowering the cost of tickets is really going to do for them at this juncture. The only other way they can really right the ship is by really doing some inspiring stuff in terms of their creative. They need to try to build really big marquee matches in order to move tickets. And it's going to really test, hey, how many of the guys do we have currently that can really legitimately draw? And you know, I think they have some really intriguing people that they haven't booked in anything yet. Rhea Ripley and Io Sky are 2 of the company's biggest stars, and they don't have any clear WrestleMania program right now. Ditto for Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss. These are all recognizable marquee names that just have no creative direction for the biggest show of the year currently. And you know, a lot of these things will probably become more clear after the Elimination Chamber. I think on the women's side, they still have a lot to build with. On the men's side, things look kind of rougher. You know, there are probably some bold creative swings you can take with the current stars you have, but I don't know. I think this is a situation where in the last 3 years, they haven't done enough to build enough big name stars that they can suddenly say, here's this guy versus this guy, first time of their huge WrestleMania match, and have it be a major draw. More importantly, this is the first time in literally forever that WWE just don't have a lot of nostalgic part-timers to draw on for big intrigue matches. Because this is a play they've done for a long time. You know, consider The Undertaker's streak. There was a long period of time where Undertaker wasn't wrestling for most of the year, but he would show up for WrestleMania season, and the Undertaker match would be a guaranteed draw because of the reputation, because of the name value, because the streak was huge, etc. Or consider WrestleMania 38. They got very stone old Steve Austin to have a match with Kevin Owens for some reason. And you know, there are probably a decent amount of people who were willing to go to the event just to hear the glass shatter again. But in the lead up to WrestleMania 42, they don't really have anyone waiting in the wings they can draw on. Undertaker's retired. Goldberg is another nostalgia name that they brought in for some intrigue matches. He's retired this year. John Cena's retired. Randy Orton, he's not really part-time or exclusive enough for whatever his WrestleMania match is going to be major draw, at least in my opinion. In terms of big surprise nostalgia pops they have, it's Brock Lesnar. And I think with his reputation being where it is in the current day, I don't think he can move tickets in the way that they would need him to. And also, Brock Lesnar has been a seasonal name for like a decade now. The seasonal Brock Lesnar match is something people are a lot more tired of than they would be excited by. And so, I think WWE is in a really unique position because for the first time in like forever, they are in a place where they don't have any major old names that they can bring back and say, hey, remember this guy? He's wrestling for the first time in forever. Even looking at WrestleMania's 40 and 41, those had Dwayne Johnson suddenly returning and John Cena suddenly returning and turning heel. Those are major part-time old names that they relied on in lieu of their current stars and the current people they have wrestling, and right now they're really paying for that. All that is to say, I'm really interested to see what they're going to do, because they're either going to take some really brave creative swings and try to really make something super duper hot going into WrestleMania season, or they're just gonna chart the course as planned and we're gonna see how that goes for them. You know, do you want to see Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre for the 4th time in 6 months? Not really, but there's probably something they're going to run. But I think it is more interesting if they really do make some brave choices, because in my opinion, no matter what they do creatively, their fate is kind of set in stone here. I think that double dipping from this pool of fans is really what's going to bite them in the ass, and I hope they learn the right lesson from that. The right lesson being that TKO's purported plan to run WrestleMania in Las Vegas regularly in the future is a really bad idea. You need fresh locations. You need to market to the entire country. You need to draw from fresh pools of fans who just aren't able or aren't willing to travel to Las Vegas. But we'll see. Best case scenario, it at least makes for some interesting TV. I don't think that interesting TV is going to happen soonish. I think it's going to happen after Elimination Chamber at the end of the month. Because if you look at the TV now, they're very obviously in filler mode. They're very obviously just building for the Elimination Chamber and buying themselves time to figure out what the fuck they're actually doing for WrestleMania. And that's not good for the TV, for the product, for ticket sales, for anything, but it's where we're at right now. I'm recording this on a Monday. It's probably gonna go up either later tonight or on Tuesday, so maybe they're gonna put on a crazy Monday Night Raw or something, but I kinda doubt it. And overall, I hope they try to save themselves, because as a fan, that would be more interesting to see, but I don't think it's ultimately going to work. But what do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that they do have a marquee name that they can roll out and move some tickets? Do you think it's possible for the creative to save them? Do you think my theories are bunk? What do you think generally? I don't know. Engage with my video. Like, comment, subscribe. Please.